Okay, I'm going to call the City Council work session of July 9th, 2024 to order. I want to welcome all of you and thank you for attending in person and those who are with us online. During the work session, this is an opportunity for council to receive information, also to discuss issues and matters that affect the city. We do not vote in work session, nor do we carry any of these items up to our regular meeting at 7 p.m. So with that, I want to recognize Alice Howard, who's our county council person in the back there. And item number 2 on the agenda is an employee new hire recognition from the fire department. Chief Ogden.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to welcome aboard Giovanni and Joshua with us. Giovanni served in the military. He's prior Army and liked our area in Beaufort, so him and his wife has relocated to the Beaufort area. And Joshua was an EMT all the way from Seattle, so he's come cross coast for us. And they both are starting the fire academy in August, so we're going to break them in good and hot without August weather. So we're glad to have them both aboard.
Well, welcome to the team.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. Okay, item number 3, discussion items. A is King Street Stormwater Project options discussion. Will the Deputy City Manager, J.J. Sauvé. Okay.
All right, good evening, Council. I want to thank Tracy for getting a little stand for the microphone here, so hopefully everyone can hear me tonight. Council, at our last work session, before I turned the floor over to Davis and Floyd, presented you with 3 options for this King Street project. I'm not going to go into the full history of the project. It's been discussed over and over and over again in many public meetings. The 3 options that the city has moving forward are, 1, proceeding with the original design. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that tonight unless council directs me to. You have before you in your packet a memorandum that discusses the pros and the cons for each of these options. Option 1, according to the engineers, they believe it provides the greatest long-term protections and resiliency for the community. And it executes the plan that was originally identified in the downtown point drainage study. And it's already designed to a 60% completion stage, and the permitting process has begun. The cons to that option are that it is not favored by the community. It requires building a control station in Knott Park. It's unsightly large pump station at the Federal Street Bridge. It requires a specific timeline due to the project being grant funded. It is the most expensive option, and it requires significant construction and disruption of the daily lives during this construction phase. Council options 2 and 3 are going to be the primary focus of this conversation, unless, again, you tell me otherwise and want to go back to option 1 in more detail. Option 2 would be directing Davis and Floyd, our contracted engineers on this project. They were awarded this project after a competitive bid process because the grant funding involved requires us to go through the procurement process. Option 2 would be directing Davis and Floyd to, through a change order in the design contract, to take into consideration all the public input they've received and the input that you've given them and that staff have given them to design a system that does not include a pump station or the controls that go along with the pump station, basically a gravity-fed system. So we'd be looking at replacing the conveyance and collection system, which is the drains in the roadways and the pipes, and assessing the type of outfall structure that would need to be in place. I'm not an engineer, and I'm not going to go into a lot of the details. At the end of the memorandum, you have an email that is attached to that from Michael Horton, with Davis and Floyd that goes through that option, their recommendations on that option. As part of that, going back to the drawing board approach, we could look at including green infrastructure as discussed by Councilman Scaletti at the last meeting, looking at other potential underground storage options and, the sizing and necessity of the outfall structure. Some pros to that approach is that it does address many, if not most, of the public's concerns and complaints that we've heard thus far. It removes the need for the pump station above ground structures. It's believed to be significantly less expensive, even with new design and permitting requirements, although I do not have a specific cost estimate to provide you with. It does address the aging and failing existing collection and conveyance system and outfall that were identified in the original study. And if we were to proceed with Davis and Floyd's recommendation under option 2, a system could be designed that would allow for a pump station to be permitted and placed in the future. Ideally, I believe the goal with option 2 would be to proceed with the conveyance and collection upgrades, address the existing style outfall, and then spend a hopefully long time assessing the results of that and never need a pump station, but you would still have that option if you needed to get to that point. Davis and Floyd goes so far as to recommend that we would amend their initial contract to specifically exclude construction and finishing out the permitting process for the pump station. That would be completely taken out of their scoping. They would only design or complete the design process so that that portion could be shelved. And then we would basically start fresh with a collection, conveyance, and outfall design. The cons to option 2 is that it does not address all of the public's concerns and complaints, specifically those that we've heard most recently being that there is no flooding or stormwater problem on the point. It may extend the timeline beyond that of the grant funding. As I've told you and the public since my involvement in this project, we're not going to let grant funding dictate the outcome of a project, but that is a consideration. It may not be approved and it may not be completed within a timeline for the grant funding, so we may need to look at funding source down the road. The change in scope does require approval of SCIP, which is the state agency that is providing the contract, and that's not guaranteed. And it will still require extensive construction and disruption of the daily life during the construction phase, although any construction project, stormwater project, is going to have that con attached to it. The third option, council, is to postpone the project, either indefinitely or until it can be reviewed as part of the capital improvements planning process or the strategic planning processes. There's a couple of different options that could be pursued in postponing the project. We could let Davis and Floyd know that we intend to terminate the contract at the completion of the design phase, or that we intend to terminate the contract, give notice for the 60-day mark from now. Either way, council would have the option to reassess this project and the need for this project during both the capital improvements planning process and next year's strategic planning session. The pros associated with option 3 are there are no or minimal further expenditures of city funds. It addresses many of those most recent public concerns and complaints that we've heard, specifically those comments that there are no flooding or stormwater issues in the Point community. And if fully designed or permitted and shelved, it may be brought forward in the future more quickly if it were to be deemed necessary. Cons, it does not address any problems or potential problems now or in the immediate future. If design and/or permitting is not completed, the city has nothing to show for already expended funds. and may be required to explain the stoppage of the project if we apply for state or federal funding in the future for a similar project or any project in this area. At this point, council, I know I've met with just about all of you. We've had multiple discussions. We've been out to the site with the engineers. You've heard from the public on numerous occasions. I would, open for discussion, questions that you have for me as the staff representative. And then I believe we have members of the public here that would like to comment before council makes a decision. But we are under a timing restriction here in that under the current design, there's been enough appeals through the OCRM review process that OCRM needs to schedule a formal public hearing on the permitting process. And they need to do that relatively soon. So we need to provide them with an answer of which way we're proceeding, depending on how council directs us. That may stop that clock on the permitting concern, but we need to let them know one way or the other as soon as possible. With that, does council have any specific questions for me about the options moving forward?
Council, any questions?
I have comment.
Okay.
I spoke with a number of the people on the point, and option two, I'm definitely in favor of option two. It gives us expansion, maybe 15, 30 years down the road to put that pump station in, should the climate do as predicted, may or may not, who knows. But I think it answers most of the neighbors' concerns. It's a lot better than the pump station, so putting that in now. So I definitely am in favor of option two.
Yes, sir, Councilman Mitchell.
Yeah, I think during the course of the discussions, the topic of fixing what's there has been discussed in detail and numerous times. In option two, it talks about doing that, fixing what's there and making sure that the infrastructure that's there is either fixed or where need be replaced so that the water can get to the point where the gravity feed portion of the discussion would take place. As I'm looking at, and I realize you may not have it in front of you, but I'm trying to sort out this gravity feed portion of the construction. Whether is it existing now? Is that something that would have to be constructed? Do you know?
It would need to be constructed. As you look at the initial survey that was done, where they looked at the pipes, there were collapsed pipes in different sections. These are old, for the most part, clay pipes that cannot be cleaned out using conventional or current methods of cleaning. All of the piping in the downtown and Point areas were cleaned out to the best of staff's ability back in the week of Easter in April 2023. South Carolina DOT, the county DOT came in, or county public works came in and helped our public works to clean out the systems as best they could. My understanding is there were improvements throughout the downtown and Point area after that. But this would, the engineers believe there needs to be, at the very least, modernization of those pipes, because the majority of them are at or beyond the expected life.
Yeah. So that gravity feed portion of the construction that would be necessary, I'm trying to get a picture in my mind of how it compares in size, because I know
You're talking about the outfall,
the gravity controls.
the drain from the pond.
Oh, I apologize. You're talking about the actual, the outfall, the tidal
I'm
gate?
looking at this.
Yes, sir.
That's the
It's-
outfall.
Yeah.
Gravity outfall controls.
Yes, sir.
So
So
that,
Out the pump.
Yeah,
Yes,
without the pump. So that structure, as I look at it on this picture that was shared with us by Davis and Floyd on the 25th, it's parallel with where the pump station would be.
yes.
And you're saying that that would have to be constructed. That is not there now.
Yeah, so we don't know what the outfall design would look like. That's going back to the drawing board.
Mhm.
It would be and again, I'm not an engineer and I'm learning coastal, water engineering here. It would be a floodgate type system is what they are proposing. But exactly what that would look like in the size, I can't tell you, but they said the maximum would be approximately 3 times the size of what is currently there. That's the worst case scenario. It would not include any of in the drawing that you're referring to, the pump station that's out into the water, none of that. It would just be an open face, and then on the opposite end, some type of floodgate contraption, like what is there now. The question is, what would the size be of that?
So if we do all the construction for the infrastructure to move the water from the streets to that point,
Mhm.
when the water gets there, um, would it be able to handle the flow of water through that portion
The-
of the?
The engineers at Davis and Floyd believe that a system can be designed that does not create a more dangerous situation or a flooding situation immediately around the pond. Um, Again, without getting a change order and having them do the additional assessments and the modeling and bringing that forward, I don't, that would be a question for the engineers.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a question. And I really haven't made up my mind on this. One of the things, this is such a confrontational, piece here or delicate project that I do want to hear from the public on these new proposals before buying that position. But, I did notice, so, their hybrid solution, I like most of what I see there. Uh, proceed with the final design of collection and conveyance system. Amend engineering contract to suspend all further conceptual, preliminary, and final design of the power and control facilities. Advance the pump station design to 60%. I think we could benefit from that just in case we would need it in the future. I don't know that the community would ever accept a pump station. I was thinking that we were at 60% design on the pump already, so I'm not sure what would need to be advanced.
There, we are, under the current design standard, we're at around that 60% mark. My understanding is if we went with option 2 and we were deferring the pump station, there would be some design changes that needed to go because it wouldn't be just one continuous system. It would be designing an outfall of which a pump station could go in and be added to later. So that-
Standalone.
Yeah, so it'd be slightly different. That would be
So
what would get us
the
there.
changes of that would be minuscule probably.
Probably,
We're already
yeah.
close to that 60% there, so, and then, restart the usage OCRM permit application reviews. The only question I have is, well, two. One, we don't know, to Councilman Mitchell's point, what the outfall design will be. So whether or not we can get something to the finish line that would not only serve the desired purpose, but also be in line with what the neighborhood wants to see. I did notice in their email at the bottom, it says anything less being desired/required of us for the size of outfall will require electing and pursuing alternative number 2.
Mhm.
So I think if that were to change in size as far as being reduced from what was already proposed, then it would automatically trigger a need for design change, which would be back to the drawing board. So question there, but I'm wondering why we couldn't if we moved forward with what their hybrid suggestion is, would we not be able to add the green infrastructure component just to better evaluate how we could implement maybe some new strategies to reduce our environmental impact in general?
Yeah.
Or would that automatically trigger a new design if we were to add that component to their hybrid suggestion?
So the way I'm reading that last sentence on the large paragraph that's on page 2 of 3 of the emails, and the way I understood the conversation with the Davis and Floyd team was that when they say anything less being desired required for us for the size of the outfall require collection and pursuing alternative 2 above, they mean that alternative 2 is what we're talking about tonight. They need that change order to be able to design a new outfall to tell us what that outfall would look like. Right now, the way the design contract is written is we asked them to design a system based on the study and the recommendations within that study. And the recommendations within that study was to a certain standard with certain sizing of pipes and the understanding that there was going to be a pump station. It was already identified in the original study. We would be, option 2 tonight would be modifying that language in the contract to say, bring us a design that is just a upgrade to the collection and conveyance system and the outfall that does not include a pump station. And so all of that, including, we could include language, we want you to explore green infrastructure opportunities. We could put just about anything we wanted in there, even if it wasn't included. We would leave that language so generalized that we can ask for those types of things in it. Does that
Yeah, that makes
answer your
sense. So-
question?
So with that, with the understanding that my position really isn't, I don't want to solidify it until I haven't had the opportunity to speak to some of the neighbors since our last meeting. So I'd like to hear what some of the comments are tonight.
Yes, sir.
But my initial thought right now, based on what is proposed here, is I think that we should replace the pipes with larger pipes, obviously, fix the broken ones and fix the clogged outfalls. And then seek any green infrastructure alternatives that may complement our collection and distribution of that stormwater runoff. And I know that would probably require a change in the contract order, but that's where I'm at right now. And then if we had, with our 60% design level, the opportunity to, have a pump station, should it make sense in the future while we're going in this direction, I think that could be prudent of us. But I think right now the focus really should be on replacing those pipes, fixing those outfalls, and looking at any green alternative options that make sense. So that's where I'm at.
If it's agreeable with council, I'll open it up for public comment so we can hear from the public. Okay, I see you, Conway, itching to get up here, so. Welcome, Mr. Ivy.
Conway, I'm learning, Conway Ivy, 501 King Street. Thank you all for having this meeting. And my comments regarding the King Street drainage project primarily concern option 2. A change order in the engineering process has been discussed. Its purpose is to evaluate a gravity system without a pump station. I do not support option 2 as stated because a conclusion has already been reached regarding the outflow structure, which is 3 times the current size of the current outflow structure, and that would be required under this option. However, my concern can be addressed by changing the scope of work. The current proposed design was initiated by a pre-selection of a pump station and supporting power and control facilities to be located in Charlie Knott Park. Using design using the design of the existing gravity system as an alternative was not considered. A video survey of the current gravity system piping was completed. It categorized sections of the piping as heavy clogging, moderate clogging, noted pipe blockage, and inaccessible pipe. This survey defined 40 to 45% of the King Street system as being blocked or inaccessible, with inaccessible presumed blocked. I made this rough and obviously imprecise calculation using the general map provided in the Davis and Floyd 2022, the point and downtown drainage studies. This does not even include poorly functioning drains. Was a significant portion of the King Street drainage with a significant portion of the King Street drainage blocked and non-functioning, we still do not have a persistent flooding problem. The change order would address whether the current stormwater gravity system design structure, if it is I'm saying the change order should address whether the current stormwater gravity system, if it is fully functional, could it mitigate an intermittent, somewhat rare, shallow street flooding issue? If it can, as it has for much of its 100-year history, the conclusion would significantly reduce the scale and the cost of the design proposal. A critical factor in design are the assumptions of water input from the 42-acre watershed. The Davis and Floyd design model is based on 3 conditions: historical conditions, which are used in validating and calibrating the models. Current conditions are used as the basis of the design. The primary inputs are modeled 10 and 25-year maximum rainfall events. Future conditions are used to check for resilience against anticipated climate change. To account for future rainfall due to projected climate change, 2 alternative models were described in the 2022 report. The first model, on a NOAA rainfall record, accompanied by 134 realizations of 21 global climate models across South Carolina. It indicated an average rainfall increase for design events from years 2 through 25. The increased rainfall would be 0.2 of 1 inch. The second model by the National Resources Conservation Services, which was chosen for the inclusion in the design. This model projected a 4-inch per hour increase in the rainfall for a 10-year defined rain event. No reason was given in the report why the 4-inch model was selected. Future tidal conditions included in the model are based on a 50-year projection of the estimated tide at Fort Pulaski, Georgia, at the end of 50 years. The data was modified for Beaufort. The projected impact would be a level of 1.7 feet above the current conditions. The portions that each of these water input data contribute to the mass, scale, and cost of the King Street drainage project design have not been disclosed. To place these assumptions in perspective, I did a very rough comparison of the volume in cubic feet of the current piping system versus the proposed piping system. This implicitly reflects the engineering assumptions of projected water inflows from the watershed that would have to be handled by each system. The cubic foot capacity of the current piping system, if fully functional, is estimated at 5,900 cubic feet. The cubic foot capacity of the proposed piping system is 24,000 cubic feet and increased by a factor of 4. Our 100-year-old drainage system, when fully functional with 5,900 cubic feet, was adequately handling the rainfall issue. The proposed system design is obviously projecting a very significant increase in water inflows of unknown source. The projected design is based on the current condition of a 20 and 25-year maximum rainfall event. These numbers have been very stable over time. Apparently, the increased scale of the proposed piping system is being driven by projected future conditions. The flaw in the proposed option 2 change order is the water input assumptions are not changed or reevaluated. As stated in the Davis and Floyd addendum to Mr. Suave's memorandum, this leads to an oversized outflow structure that is 3 times the size of the current structure. The size of the proposed structure harms the park setting and view shed from Federal Street. To be determined is whether it impinges on the adjacent property owners. If it is determined the current system design will mitigate the street flooding, design considerations should be given to the evaluation of the current system in terms of repair and replacement of blocked pipes and malfunctioning drains. The objective is to create an outfall structure of the same size as the current outfall using modern gate technology. The current gates, I believe, are probably many decades old. This would also involve reduction in the scale of piping. It would reduce the potential adverse impact on trees as the street excavations would be reduced by approximately 50%. The change order would be a fresh restart to look at and review the King Street project from a different perspective rather than using the current water inflow assumptions and increasing the size of the outflow structure. Now, these comments go to the impact of the water input assumptions on the size and scale of the design. However, another important aspect is a consideration of the scale, severity, and frequency of the street flooding problem to be addressed. Mitigating a small, infrequent problem of short duration will inform an appropriate cost-benefit analysis. The depth of street flooding when it occurs is shallow. It is important to remember no homes on the point have ever been flooded in a non-hurricane related event. In 2014, a heavy rainfall flooded Carteret Street, resulting in some offices being flooded. An estimated peak depth was approximately 10 inches. However, an important contributing factor to the office flooding was apparently wave action created by the velocity of cars going through the water. Temporary closure of the street would have mitigated the problem. The Davis and Floyd report addressed the maximum flood depths that would result from a maximum 10-year rain event. The maximum depth model for such an event is apparently from 1 to possibly 2 feet. This depth is the maximum in 10 years, so other actual flooding events occurring in that same 10-year period would be less than 1 foot. The results apparently do not change for the 25-year maximum rainfall event. Our experience is actual flooding at King and East Street, when it infrequently occurs, is due to heavy rainfall, could be but 6 to 8 inches deep. However, it dissipates in the matter of hours. This is with a stormwater system that is 40 to 45% blocked with poorly functioning drains. There is no study of flooding duration from rainfall. Even Davis and Floyd's own tidal flooding studies and our experience indicate that the flooding events are not of long duration. I personally observed the flooding from Hurricane Irma dissipate in a matter of 3 hours from its peak. Davis and Floyd did a study of tidal flooding during a 442-day period in 2022 and 2023. It found 93 occasions the tide exceeded the average elevation of Lower King Street. However, the current tidal gate on the pond limited flooding of Lower King Street to 3 times out of those 93. The maximum duration of the King Street flooding that they measured was 3 hours and 25 minutes. There is no analysis of frequency of flooding which would indicate the persistence and importance of the problem. Our experience indicates it is shallow and infrequent, perhaps once a year from a heavy rainstorm. The street flooding on Carteret Street that occurred in 2014, with the exception of the Hurricane Irma flooding, to my knowledge, has not reoccurred in 10 years. The change order should evaluate a fully functional existing gravity drainage structure and outflow gate that would mitigate the flooding caused by a 10 and 25-year maximum. That's evaluate if the current system was fully functional, all the blockage done, would that really take care of the modeled input of the water? The order should include the identification of each water's input impact on the size and scale of the system components. I think this analysis is needed to tie in the projected water inputs with the scale of the system needed. That would help inform council in terms of the decision process. This would be for the current proposed design and the current gravity system. So you'd have two options, to look at. It would also include a comparison of the impact of both alternative models described under the projected future conditions. What's the impact of 1/10 of an inch of rainfall, over that period, or 4 inches? These points should be the primary elements of the change order. Now, regarding option 3 before us today, it contains 2 alternatives: terminating the design contract or allowing the design and permitting process to be completed. I do not support completing the design and permitting process for the current proposed design. Shelving a permitted plan will create significant future issues, as the garage controversy has demonstrated. The current design work done to date will not be lost. It will be there should it be needed in the future. Now, regarding option 1 before us today, the proposed design should not be selected. The pump station proposal is apparently to diminish the duration of the street flooding. As previously discussed, the flooding only lasts for several hours. Spending $6.5 million for a pump station to deal with a short-term, low-impact issues is not a good use of funds. The funds freed up from eliminating the pump station through amending the grant can be applied to funding cost increases in the King Street drainage project. We know they're there as much as 40% of what is proposed. With state infrastructure bank approval, the funds could also be applied to fund increased cost on the other Beaufort drainage projects that are going on. The approval may be facilitated by a reputation of spending funds carefully. The Davis and Floyd project prioritization process In that process, the block drainage on Pinckney Street supplying outfall number 8 did not make the cut. Our point neighbors in that area are impacted by that decision and would appreciate consideration of their issues as well. Freed up funds may be applied to this as well, though it was legitimately, a lower priority project. As an addendum, which on what I'm going to give you on my comments, my calculation of the cubic foot volume of the two systems is attached. So you'll see the source from the funding appendices from the 2022 report. You can see I made some. These are very rough calculations, but the idea is to present the concept. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ivan.
Thank you.
Thank you. We make sure that would anyone else like to come and speak? Ms. Litchfield?
Hi, Brenda Litchfield, 808 Hamilton. I only have 3 questions. I can ask questions here, right? Just making sure. All right, I want to follow up on one of the things that Conway said. In the original plan with all the block drains, Pinckney Street was in there, and it was noted from the green all the way to the outfall, which has a lot of street flooding. And then there were 2 other things on East Street in front of the castle that are also blocked. Well, when the proposed pipes the diagram was put out, those things, like he said, were not on there, and they were completely left off. And so does anybody know why?
JJ, you want to?
I'm not
stand beside
sharing.
you.
I'm
I'll
not
stand
sharing.
I don't want to go back and forth.
Right,
like
let's
I
be
did with Mr.
civil.
Conway. I don't have an answer to that, but if you submit those to me, I'll get you an answer from Davis and Floyd.
All right.
Yep.
All right, thank you. All right, the next question, number 2, when will a decision be made on this?
Well, we're going to give direction today.
Okay, you have to vote? Do you know
But
when?
we don't vote in this session, a work session, but he can hear from our comments what direction we wish to
Right.
go.
Oh, okay, I know you don't vote in here. And then the third one is, how will the residents be involved in this design? I mean, we weren't involved at all last time. It just showed up in the park. So how will we be involved?
Staff's intention, depending on what council directs us to pursue tonight, if, say, we went with option 2, would be to, as the design process goes and we begin to get preliminary drafting, it would be to work with the Point Association, communicate what that would look like, get public feedback. It'd be the very similar process what we've gone through thus far as how the community engagement and the meetings and the OCO would require OCRM meetings and hearings, public hearings, the same process, hopefully a little more streamlined.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Lila Meeks on New Street. I just want to say I'm too old to follow a whole lot of the arguments and the discussion that y'all are going to have to deal with. I very much appreciate your taking the time and making the effort to deal with those issues. But I do want to tell you one thing. I am plenty old enough to know that no matter how good our intentions, once we destroy beauty, we almost never get it back. So I would ask you to take the time and think about all of the information that you have in front of you before you make a decision on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jim White, 521 New Street on the corner of King and New. And the only reason I'm here today is I was surprised to see option 3 on the docket. I would just encourage you, being one of the few places on the point that actually does flood, that we've had to call to get the drains pumped out. It seems to be a regular occurrence. We know we need to do something. We were told that the drains are collapsing, and we really can't do anything about it until we can start to move in this direction. So I just encourage you to make a decision tonight, or try to move forward and not option 3, because we do have a problem. And again, I don't want to delay it any further. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. White. Anyone else?
Evening,
Thank you, Ms.
Beth
Grace.
Grace, 509 North Street. And one of the basic tenets of good governance is to have.
Microphone.
I'm
back.
sorry, okay. One of the basic tenets of good governance is to have the best information and the best team to evaluate it. One cannot prescribe a solution and base a sound decision on flawed information. The SCIIP grant application was biased and misinformed. City staff should be trained to do a full assessment of an issue before writing grants. This was not done 2 years ago under former city manager Scott Dadson. And I applaud our new city manager and his assistant JJ Sauvé for their diligence in updating staff, directives, and correspondence with affected citizens. But mostly their diligence will pay off when they bring fully vetted options for solutions to y'all. Council is responsible for legislative decisions, not for inputting predetermined information to staff or consultants. I would like to reiterate a request I made earlier for a meeting with the Point Drain Gang, as we're called, and JJ Sauvé and Davis and Floyd, because this could help us translate all the vast information we've gathered into JJ and Davis and Floyd's consideration. In this particular issue, City Council was presented with a grant proposal based on faulty assumptions. And in fairness to Davis and Floyd, the engineering firm, they were also prescribed a solution to which to respond. They're professional engineers, and they should have been tasked with complete responsibility to evaluate the many options available. No money is free. Taxpayers shoulder the expense, and whether it's federal, state, or local, it's irresponsible to ask us to fund projects which were not properly vetted. So the city should be grateful, in my estimation, for the immense brain power and resources which citizens on the Point have exerted to help make an informed and fiscally responsible decision. That decision now demands a change order to Davis and Floyd contract to investigate the matter with pricing the existing infrastructure, replacement, and upgrades in order to effectuate a plan which will benefit the citizens of the Point as well as surrounding properties on Carteret Street. So I trust our city council will be pleased to make a wise decision as well as save precious tax dollars, which will benefit many more projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grace. Anyone else? Mr. Trask? Oh, sorry, Mr. Russell.
Hi, Dave Russell, 411 Craven Street. I want to start out by just saying this process has changed immensely since JJ came into the picture. He's been very communicative. He's met with folks in the Point. He's been open. He's been honest, and he's really taken our thoughts into account. So I think it's a credit to the city that they brought him on with this. And I think, look, I think the pipes have to be addressed. And I think there needs to be a new gravity outfall. I think something 3 times the size or something the size of Mossy Oaks will be unacceptable to folks on the Point. I think there's also not been a huge level of trust built during this process. So I think getting the permit for the pump station all done and saying we're going to have that on the shelf and bring it out anytime, I don't think that would be supported by at least myself and probably some other folks, because that would basically say it's all approved, and if the city wanted to turn the switch on, then we wouldn't have any input in the matter. And I think even with the new outflow design, again, just because we do a gravity outflow and not a pump station outflow, if it's something 3 times the size and it's something that doesn't go with the character of the neighborhood, there's a process with the with DHEC, and there's an appeals process that we can go through. So I think, I guess what I'm saying is I don't want you folks to think, okay, option 2, we're off to the races and these people are gonna just, go along with it. I think it really has to be something that that goes with the character of the neighborhood, and is not overbuilt, if you will, for the amount of water that, is deposited during rainfall. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Russell?
Nancy Russell, 411 Craven Street. Again, I'd like to thank the city and Mr. Sauvé for all the work you've been doing on this project. I support option 2 with caveats because we still don't know what is going to come as the design is going to be, as my husband has noted. My comments are really addressing Councilman Scaletti's issue of green infrastructure. And in doing this, I was going to do a lot bigger project, but the holidays came. So this is my abbreviated version. It should be noted that the EPA, the U.S. Geological Survey, the 2019 Water Infrastructure Improvement Act, and the NDRC all advocate for and encourage the use of green infrastructure to aid with stormwater management when replacing traditional water management systems. Green technology does not get outdated. It's easily managed, and it doesn't cost as much. The Rockefeller Institute stated, and I agree, that much of America's gray infrastructure with respect to stormwater is nearing or at the end of its lifespan, as we're seeing here, and is in need of costly maintenance and repair. While repairs and replacements to gray infrastructure are needed, implementing complementary green infrastructure alongside them can be a cost-efficient option that can also improve the environmental health of the community. That green infrastructure was not considered in this project is disappointing. In fact, this project, option 1, is the opposite of green. It replaces green areas with large concrete buildings and structures. It uses gas generators and electric systems to run. It will kill the fish in the pond. In researching green ways to improve this situation, I also learned about wet basins, which a tidal pond is similar to. And they're used to collect stormwater, and all the pollutants and the sediments go down to the bottom so that the clear top water can be filtered out. As what has been done here for the past 20 or so years. The only diagram I've seen of the pump seemingly takes the water from the bottom of the pond, which is their way they do it because they're draining it clear before the storm. So it makes sense. That's probably what they're doing. Thus, all the pollutants and sediments that have been there over all these years will be disrupted and spread into the tidal creek and into the river, causing untold environmental damage. Green infrastructure for stormwater management has been used worldwide. One example, which I found interesting, was the city of Toledo implemented green infrastructure in 2011 with great results. Now, the city of Toledo, interestingly enough, is similar to the point. It has a low elevation and is particularly susceptible to flooding. The region around and including the city was once known as the Great Black Swamp, a significant wetland accustomed to heavy rains. NOAA and Toledo conducted research to assess the costs and benefits of implementing green infrastructure to address flooding and overflows. The cost estimates with green were far below those without it. In 2011, the city of Toledo launched the Maywood Avenue Stormwater Reduction Project. Maywood Avenue, like King Street, is a residential neighborhood used as a test project for the city. The project reconstructed the neighborhood streetscape. making sidewalks permeable, retrofitting rights of ways and lawns to accommodate bioswales, implementing rain gardens and rain barrels on private property. The bioswales spanned the length on both sides of the avenue, and residents were given a choice of different plantings. That project reduced average stormwater runoff on Maywood Avenue by 64%. Similarly, a Green Street project in Wilmington, North Carolina, where permeable pavements and bioretention areas were constructed for runoff discharges, runoff discharges were decreased by 28%, and runoff volumes were decreased by 50% for the average storm. So I try to pick the two places that I felt would be more similar to here. This goes on, there's Albany, New York, Philadelphia, there's cities all over that are implementing such things. The EPA discusses several items which could easily be combined with a new piping to aid in eliminating street flooding during a rain bomb event. Number one, permeable pavement. They achieve multiple benefits since they provide surfaces to remove vehicle and pedestrian traffic and reduce stormwater discharges. It traps and slowly releases the participation into the ground instead of letting it all flow into the stormwater system. It reduces ponding and local flooding by infiltrating stormwater on site. There are also some that increase the conductivity of permeable pavement to improve infiltration, but also wicks moisture from the ground to improve evaporation. Additionally, the lighter colors of permeable pavement help reduce heat. It has been used in many places, and in this case, I think it would be ideal for resurfacing King Street. As the plan is to tear up King Street for the pipes, resurfacing the street would not only serve to reduce flooding, it would also seem to lend itself to historical context since portions of the street were formerly a waterway. Bioswales. They're essentially rain gardens placed along long, narrow areas. They use vegetation to slow and filter the water. Variants include grassed channels, dry swales, and wet swales. Just looking around the pond itself, there's a lot of space that's green that you could put in a bioswale so that if the water does go over the pond, it would go into the bioswale before it actually gets on the street. Additionally, Harvey Park has sufficient area to add such features. The rights of way in several of the in very areas, and most specifically near the post office, the county parking areas could easily accommodate such features. These also grass channels, they can be placed where water currently collects and because it can't reach the drains, and they become muddy areas instead. If you stop the water up top of King Street, it doesn't all flow down. Most homes in the point have yards that tend to flow directly into the street. There are no channels or ditches to direct the water to the drains, only to the streets. This often leads to days of puddling and deterioration of the streets. Bioswales and channels could help this as well. The post office is surrounded by green space that seems to direct the water down towards Carteret. Adding some bioswales and those rights of way would help alleviate stormwater and take the issue there. Again, the county parking lots, adding some green space and adding some green parking features. I mean, it's kind of an ugly parking lot. Just add some trees a little bit could make it much better and reduce stormwater. Additionally, the point is unique in that it has many areas where views are protected. These open spaces could easily incorporate bioswales and rain gardens. As a further note, the tidal pond, as has been noted, the King Street is lower than Federal Street by a few inches. Knott Park is walled to be higher than the King Street end of the pond. There's sufficient space to add a berm and plants to effectively raise the end of the pond a few inches to reduce any overflow. That in conjunction with the bioswale would help prevent any overflow onto King Street. Community and businesses could be encouraged to participate in several other activities to reduce stormwater demand. Additionally, new construction permits could require these items be adhered to. One such is downspout disconnection. This is simple. Reroute your drainage from going directly into stormwater sewer into something else, into the grass or something. A quick review of businesses along and around King Street show that many of them release their water directly into impervious surfaces that then lead to the storm drains. A back of the envelope look shows Beaufort Copy's gutter ends at the roof line, thus depositing all of its rainwater into a large non-permeable parking lot. Beaufort Digital Quarter is another massive concrete area which the downpours release onto the concrete into the stormwater. Similarly, Limelight Hair deposits its rainwater directly onto the sidewalk. Rain gardens are used in various areas, parking lots, businesses, to help, and again, the open view area to help reduce the flow of stormwater. Rain harvesting could be considered using cisterns to collect rainwater, which could later be used to irrigate, so we don't have to pay for the irrigation water. Said I won't argue a green solution alone will solve these issues, but green infrastructure along with a new title guide option 2 would be a better, more cost-effective solution in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Jesse nodding back there. Okay. Gene?
Gentlemen, Gene Grace, 509 North Street. I've changed my whole speech here. It occurred to me last week that Beth and I are the third and fourth oldest living members of the Point. And that in itself is a little bit scary. We've lived here now for 50 years on that corner. And we've seen a lot of rain and a lot of tides in that time. There's not a lot of new information that can be provided. We're saying the same things kind of over and over, except for what Mrs. Russell just reported a little while ago. All I'd like to say is that 282 residents signed a petition to have no structures in the park or pond. That takes away option 2. So, gentlemen, I implore you to listen to us, your constituents, your electorate. All we want is the infrastructure upgraded, which will in effect improve other areas around the park and pond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grace. Anyone else? Trask?
Usually I understand I'm coming from a speaker. I'm Graham Trask. I own a house at 1211 Bay Street. If I might, I'd like to ask some questions, and I'm not trying to stump anyone. I'm just trying to, if I were in your shoes, how I would think about this, because I've been listening to all this information, and you got to be able to synthesize it down to make a decision. And it seems like there's a lot of uncertainty. And so one of the things I thought that might be interesting is to come to an agreement on what the problem is. Do you guys know what the problem is? What's the problem? What's the problem that we're trying to solve? I mean, it's not, it's a serious question.
I think the most obvious one, based on the reports that came back, were the aging infrastructure underground. So the collapsed lines, the broken outfalls, to me, that's what stood out as the more prominent issue that we're trying to solve. So flooding is probably just a symptom of that, but that's what stood out to me was the aging infrastructure.
Okay.
Agree.
Okay. Fair enough. I thought it was, and again, I thought it was to solve the flooding problem, but I don't believe there's consensus that there is a flooding problem. Is there? I mean, do you guys believe it? No, seriously, because we're talking about spending $7 million. Is there a flooding problem?
Personally, I've received mixed reports. I've had some say that there is and some say that there's not. I don't live in the Point. I've driven to the Point every heavy rain that I've been off to see what the situation is. But for the most part, as what's been pointed out tonight, it alleviates itself pretty well. And that's with the broken pipes and the outfalls that aren't functioning properly.
Right.
But not being an engineer, looking at trying to prepare for resiliency in the future is also a factor that I know I'm taking into consideration. But I think the consensus that I've gotten for the most part is not necessarily whether there's a flooding issue or not, but how do we address the broken lines, fix the outfalls, and then does that or does that not resolve the issues and move water appropriately through that watershed and out?
Right.
So,
But fixing those, sorry to cut you off,
No,
but fixing those is, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I was done.
Fixing those is to solve a supposed flooding problem. And there's one gentleman here who says there is a flooding problem. And sorry, this is a work session, I hope, so I'm
It
really
is.
trying to get my head around. Has your place been flooded? Does it go in your building or house? No. Yeah. So it's an inconvenience. I'm just trying to understand what the core problem is. That's why I'm asking the problem. Yeah. Well, okay. Anyway, so the core problem is there's some flooding and, no house has been flooded, it appears. I just wanted to add a couple layers of context. I'm trying to get a building approved downtown and the HDRB wanted it to be flood proofed, which is fine. Comes up to the window, I think here, $35,000 for that building to be flood proofed. I only share that with you as an order of magnitude of the people that might be impacted. And I think there were some number of 6 buildings which may be flooded. Well, 6 times 35, you can do the math, is about $200,000. If the city paid to flood proof those houses. In listening to all this and having to synthesize it down, I would concur with the conclusion that Councilman Scaletti came up with, which is, or supports, which is let's fix what we have. And then if that fails to solve the problem, address it at that time. I am very wary and I would implore you not to continue following this train of we got to spend $7 million because it was approved. I think that is a wrong approach. And I think most people here, and certainly all the people on the point, the large majority of the people on the point, don't want to go that direction either. So I hope you'll follow Councilman Scaletti and let's fix what we have and then readdress if it's an issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trask. Anyone else? Okay, hearing
That's-
none.
We have some virtual comment, Mr. Mayor.
We have one online?
A few, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello, this is John Ginder, 409 Federal Street. I want to thank City Council and Mr. Sauvé for the chance for the, obviously well demonstrated intention to understand this issue and to seek out our voices here. We really appreciate it. I find myself concurring with most of the speakers. I had just a small comment regarding Mr. Russell's questions about the large size of the new outfall that might be designed under this option 2. And this is maybe a rhetorical question at this point, but that may be designed based on the observed flow rate out of the pond, which right now is hindered by a 2-foot tall weir or dam under Federal Street. And I suspect that if that were removed or adjusted, the flow rates would be higher and perhaps not such a large outfall would be necessary. I guess, more generally, I would like to encourage the design process to consider optimizing the use of the pond as a reservoir for runoff and taking the best advantage of it. So that's the extent of my comment. Again, thank you for the opportunity very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I get a point of clarification just real quick?
Sure.
So I've heard a couple of times about option 2 and the outfall. It seems like the way that I'm reading it, option 2 would allow us to go back to the drawing board and redesign that. So
Well
I'm
understood.
not sure if I understand the opposition to option 2, because so long as the neighborhood was included in that design process, I think we could still get to the desired end goal, even concerning the outfall underneath that option. Am I reading that wrong?
No, Councilman Scaletti, that is my understanding that the up to 3 times the size of the current outfall is how Mike explained that to me, the engineer from Davis and Floyd, under the current modeling.
Which he
So-
says if we reduce that, it would trigger the need for option 2, because then it would go
Right.
back to redesign.
To the more, any type of redesign, any type of reassessment to a different standard would require option 2, amending the contract through a change order.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And we do have another virtual.
Trask? Yep.
I have one comment.
Yep, sure.
Paul Trask, 610 Bladen Street. So we've heard tonight, the engineering study, a video survey revealed bad pipes, clogged pipes, 40 to 45% blocked. We've heard that basically that the system is at the end of its service life, with the exception of the gentleman whose yard floods, which may be a situation where a little additional engineering needs to be done, a little additional design work. I want to also tell you about a situation very similar where I live on Bladen Street. We had very heavy rains at one point in time that caused flooding in Bladen Street between King and Prince. And a similar situation to what was described earlier, where vehicles would come up the street and create a tidal wave that almost washed into my wife's Pilates studio. So that was solved by cleaning the pipes. The pipes were cleaned and the problem went away. And you've heard me fuss earlier about the expenditure of $400,000 additional dollars to study the watershed in my neighborhood. I've argued that there is no flooding problem in the neighborhood, and that the crux of the issue had to do more with simply repairing a dip in the street and making some simple improvements, relatively speaking. So I would encourage you to please identify the problem, figure out a solution, and then fix the problem without spending all this money disrupting the character of the point in particular, but still addressing the particular and isolated concerns of this gentleman who says that he does have a flooding problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Russell, 411 Craven, just have one clarifying point. I'm not against option 2 and not against an upgraded outfall weir, gravity weir. I think that absolutely has to be done. But I think what I'm just mostly confused about is, in the question and answer FAQ that people have asked questions and the city's responded. question 37, 38, 39 all say that the volume of water is not going to increase. And this is when they're with the pump station. So if the volume of water is not increasing, it just seems having a outfall in weir that's 3 times the size of the gravity weir that's there now seems to be unreasonable. But just to be clear, just because we're questioning how big this gravity weir, which we want, should be, doesn't mean we're opposing option 2. Just questioning how large and potentially overbuilt it's being proposed.
Sure, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a comment?
Real quickly, I think we've got some other people.
Okay, real quickly. I don't think anybody in this room disagrees that the pipes need to be fixed. I mean, we keep going over and over it again. I think we all know and agree that we do need to fix that. So that's kind of the moot point. I mean, it really needs to be done. On Mr. Russell's previous comments, if you look into our city ordinances and the regional stormwater plan, you'll see most of yours are already required for new construction. That's all I had to say.
We do have one more virtual comment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Deb Chivas at 310 Hancock. My question was about the actual application that was presented for this work. It actually shows pictures of Hurricane Irma, which was a once in a, it used to be 100 years, and I'm sure it's 50 years, maybe now it's 20 years, hurricane, which the system you're suggesting would not help us with at all. And those pictures of Irma were actually used in the application to go forward with this project. And I think that it was a bit disingenuous to use those pictures instead of a normal flood or high tide, blue moon and high tide combined kind of a flood that we deal with. And I would just like to ask what the response is to that. And again, reiterate that we should start with the basics, which is getting all of those drains that don't work and haven't worked for years. I don't know why that was left to rot and ruin, but I think it's time to fix those before we go forward. We've had so many great ideas. I love the green ideas. And that would be my hope that that's the way we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else?
Brenda Litchfield, 808 Hamilton. If you choose option 2, does that automatically require that the permit for the pump is included in that? So if you say 2, it means that.
Staff is not proposing that in option 2. If council were to direct us to pursue option 2, and one of the designs you would like us to pursue would be what was proposed by Davis and Floyd, a system that's designed in a way where a pump station could be added down the road. That pump station would be completed from a design standpoint, but it would not be permitted. The only permitting that would move forward would be whatever is deemed to be required for the new outfall structure. That answer your question?
Tony, anyone else?
No, sir.
Okay. Rob?
Rob Cahill, 608 Otter Street. So this is for the sound engineers. I'm near the back row and I couldn't hear hardly a third, 2/3 of what's being said. Neil, you said something was mute. I'm clueless what you thought was mute because I couldn't decipher it and I'm straining to hear. The calls that come online are clear, crisp. It's a delight to hear. So I implore whomever's responsible for the sound in this room to make it so we can hear it. Thank you.
Sir, is my microphone, did not have it up to me. Okay.
Okay, what's the pleasure of council? Do we want to go ahead and offer our options and give
I could.
direction?
I have my position. So I'd like to make one comment and then, provide my thoughts based on the feedback that we gathered tonight. One, while I will agree that we can all, continue through education to be better and get better trained and equipped to go after grants or whatever it is, I just would like to say thank you. I think Carrie has been a driving force behind the grants, and you have been very successful with bringing grant funding back to the city. So I just want to take this moment to thank you for that and all of the hard work that you have done to get us this far on several of these capital improvement projects. So thank you. And then as far as my position goes, I think that option 2 sounds like the best choice for us right now is to send this back to the design with the stipulation that the drain gang, was that the term? The drain gang is brought to the table with staff and with Davis and Floyd to talk about what design makes sense and what alternative green infrastructure options could help complement those new drains going in. That would be my position.
Councilman Lipsitz?
Option 2, and I'd like Davis and Floyd to look at the outflow to see what fits the neighborhood best. But option 2.
Okay, Councilman Mitchell?
Like Josh, there's been a lot of work that went into this. There's been a lot of conversations. I've met in folks' house, the Grace's house. I've gone out because I wanted to walk the ground and see the outfalls and see where those stakes were and try to get a good vision in my mind of the size of the pump station and so forth. I would hope that everyone, regardless of how we proceed, realize that everyone is trying to do what's best for the city, for the neighborhood. I too feel that to do nothing would be the wrong thing. I feel that fast forward really 50 years from now, probably none of us in this room will be here. And the Point neighborhood will probably be here in some fashion. The impact of the weather, whether you believe in global warming or whatever is causing these large rainstorms that we're having, which is different from what we've had in the past, can be debatable. But I think to do nothing is kind of waiting for the Trump problem to come to you, which is never good, at least in my opinion. So I've heard a lot about what we don't want. And through that smoke screen, trying to figure out, well, what do we want? Okay. And what I've heard is fix what's broken, right? A lot of comments about the water not draining the way it should because the infrastructure which is designed to do that may have either failed or not operating properly. The benefit of fixing what's there is that we can find out what the true impact of it is, right? So I'm good with that. I think we should do that. Because otherwise we'll never really know for sure. If we do nothing, then it's not going to get better. We put a big pump station in which no one in the neighborhood probably wants to wake up and look out their window and see. It's really going to piss off a lot of people. And be honest with you, I don't know whether I'd want to look at it if I were living in the neighborhood either. So I say we fix everything that's there. There's some areas probably where it's going to be some disruption. If the pipes are collapsed, then there's going to have to be some digging, probably some damage to tree roots, et cetera. But that would probably be the minimal way of going forward. we've spent considerable money on the study. I see no harm in letting the design process be completed. We're not putting anything in. But if 50 years from now, someone decide, or 30 years from now, when the population of the point will probably be different, there may be some different perspective. Then we'll also know what, if the Davis and Floyd folks are right about their projections on rainfall. So we have some time to do this, and I think we can do both. So my position is that, and I'm struggling with this because I still wonder whether I have enough information or whether even I understand it well enough to make the right decision, but I'm doing my best. So my position is that we fix what's there, but we also make provisions to let the design study be completed, so that if it becomes necessary sometime in the future, we don't have to go back and do that. And we wouldn't be, as if in option 3, just kind of, excuse my language, but pissing away the money that we've been spent and nothing to show for it. Thanks.
Councilman McPhee?
All said. I agree, the option 3 is not an option, as far as we're concerned in due diligence or prudence. As far as the community is concerned, I think option 2, without considering the continuation of any further pump designs at this point, where it does not appear that that would be that beneficial or acceptable as far as the neighborhood or the area is concerned. And utilizing, when at all possible, the opportunity for green technology. I will say that I've been involved in 2 commercial projects in the last 5 years that have impervious soil, concrete and rain gardens, and they cost twice as much as regular concrete. And so green technology is not less expensive necessarily. Just, I'm not discounting anything that you said, but I'm just saying it's not less expensive than everything. So you didn't say that, Pump. You just said it was less expensive than other technologies. So, but like I say, I appreciate it and have that, but once again, it is more expensive than regular concrete too. But there you are.
Option 2? Okay, I also am going, in favor of option 2, and
Not that we're voting.
not whether we're voting, no, but I'm in favor of it because I think we need to fix the problem. That is the problem. Let's see how it works. We can always monitor it, and we can always go back later if it turns out to be a worse problem than we thought. But, that would be our instruction, I guess, or marching orders, if you will, to go back to Davis and Floyd, include the drain gang, include all the comments that were made tonight and reports. Thank you, Mr. Ivy, and make sure that's included for their benefit.
I appreciate it, council. I believe staff has enough guidance to move forward with some variation of option 2. Just to summarize what I'm hearing is I'll work with the city attorney on the appropriate change order language, but something along the lines of designing a system to the lowest or an acceptable standard that is as close to the existing footprint that's there, and that takes into consideration the potential to add a pump station if it were deemed necessary down the road, but that's not a deciding factor, and to stand up a citizens advisory group to assist in that process. Does that sound like a fair, again, I don't know how that language will ultimately come out. I'll work with the city attorney, but does that sound like a fair summary of the direction council would like us to proceed? All right. Thank you, council. I'll turn it over to Councilman Scaletti to talk about something non-controversial like transportation tax referendums.
Well played.
Thank you, JJ.
So this next item is simply just to introduce a discussion in regards to the 2024 transportation sales referendum. I don't know if you guys followed the third reading at county council, but that was a third reading that approved moving forward with having a sales referendum added to the ballot in November, with the hopes of bringing in approximately $950 million for our transportation needs. So I won't get into too much detail because I do think that there's going to be an education campaign of sorts provided by the county to help get us more in line and in tune with what the desires are. Some of it was spelled out in the ordinance, and a lot of the projects that are intended to be funded were captured in there. But I do think that there's still some questions in the community, and an education campaign would prove to be beneficial. But tonight, I would like to just discuss the 10 million, which I'll back up for a second. If you watch the third reading at County Council, our representative for District 4, Alice Howard, who's here tonight, proposed a change to that, which would allow for the city of Beaufort and the town of Port Royal to have $10 million for municipal identified priorities should this referendum pass in November. So my understanding is that the language would be for municipal identified priorities, which is okay. We have several priorities regarding transportation that have been previously identified, but my hopes are that through the introduction of this conversation, that our council could maybe give staff some direction on what our intentions would be with that 10 million based on previous identified priorities, so that the constituents that we represent will have a good understanding of what our intentions are with these funds should it pass. So that's where we're at. To be honest, I don't know exactly how this conversation will go, and if what comes out of it is simply a plan to identify some of those priorities before the citizens vote on this in November, then I think that could be good enough. Even if we don't land on an exact one or two, but just kind of pinpoint a couple that are still concerns, still haven't been funded, and that we could potentially benefit from with 10 million. So we only have this opportunity, and then maybe we have 4 more meetings before November, so not a whole lot of time to discuss this. I don't know if you all have any thoughts regarding projects that were previously identified. I do have one that I could add to the discussion, but if anybody has any suggestions as far as what we could do to better plan and be proactive should this pass, that's kind of what this conversation is right now.
We can have more work sessions on this particular topic, so we can, if we have to, do several more than just the next 4.
Okay.
But there's already, I guess, a question I had, I guess, of the city manager. The County Transportation Committee had contracted with F&ME for a study of county roads conditions, and I don't know if that included, Alice, maybe you know, if that included city streets as well. They're all just state roads? Okay. And that would include the city then, you know, what we have. Good. Yeah, our own roads, we know we have very few, but most of our roads are state roads. JJ, you want to?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, we've had several comments online that when we have people out in the seats talking, no one can hear them. So we'd ask that anybody come forward. Sorry, Councilwoman. And also just briefly, Councilman Scaletti, you got a little ahead of me on the capital planning process. We're going to be coming back before you on August 20th for a work session. It's going to be our first quarterly capital improvements planning process meeting. And we're going to talk a lot at that meeting and future meetings this year about how we hope to engage the different neighborhoods throughout Beaufort in the community engagement process for identifying capital projects. And I'm sure that streets are going to come up as a big part of that. So and that is being looked at in the overall picture of capital improvements planning. It won't be strictly just streets, but that will be a big part of that conversation on the 20th.
Okay. Good
Yes.
enough.
Mitch, Councilman Mitchell.
Well, Josh and I were talking about this earlier today on how do we proceed. And as I shared with him, I was struggling with it because I wasn't sure where to start. We talked about, or I suggested that maybe there's some sort of a committee from the citizens of the city that would do some sort of work and then come back to staff and then, to council. It's certainly important because the last time we tried this and the referendum didn't pass, education is going to be key to this. And the more that we can do as a city to educate the citizens within the city, I think the more likely something like this will be successful. So I want to echo what JJ was saying is that, and maybe we do have to have extra work sessions to get to where we need to be, and this would be a perfect reason to have extra work sessions. So I would be in favor of seeing what comes forth in the next work session, I guess would be in August, from staff. And that may give us a path forward as we kind of meander our way, hopefully to success.
No, I think it's a great opportunity and a great exercise because in having the work sessions and making them available fully to the public, it also gives the opportunity to educate on the plan as compared to advocating on it, which is of course not allowed from city standpoint from any of the government entities involved with the referendum. But I think that gives a great opportunity for that. And we do own roads in the city, and we do have the opportunity of updating potential plans for third crossings and other opportunities that could come before us to help push forward plans that we recognize as being things that need to be done sooner than later. So
Let me bring this up real quick. I'm sorry, Neil. So I just handed you guys something that I printed out, and this is a previously identified project. Maybe some of you guys have institutional knowledge as to why this wasn't followed up with, or perhaps we just haven't gotten there. This came from the long-range transportation plan that was conducted, I think, in 2006. So it goes a good ways back. But if you look at the order of the projects that were listed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 have been complete. And then this was the 6th project. So it could just be that this option hasn't come up yet or hasn't been discussed further than just being introduced into the study. And maybe it's not a good one, but I felt like I would print it out for the sake of conversation, because one of the things that was kind of at a pivotal when I came on council was the parallel road on Boundary Street, because there were some previously identified alternatives that could work or options that could work. And then a lot of those were lost with the Pintail development. Two things that I have noted to be of significant when it comes up in conversation is the Salem Road, because we have a lot of new development there and sidewalks that haven't yet been completed. And I think those are part of the 2018 pathways that would be funded from this referendum if it passed.
No, they're already funded. Salem Road is already funded. They're
Okay.
getting the surveys for it,
Sidewalks.
the sidewalks.
Okay, so those would not be.
In
funded
Old
from-
Salem Road.
Okay.
Right. So that wouldn't have to come out of
Gosh,
this money. Yeah.
Where it says Bay Street, that's actually North Street. That's actually North Street.
That's Google Maps. You can argue with them.
It's North Street, trust me. That's not Bay Street, it's
It
North
is.
Yeah.
Street.
Yeah, it is.
I didn't label that. That's
I grew up
So
in that
this-
area,
So
so
this is the Spanish Moss Trail.
yes. So this was a new road proposal
That was
that
in
would go from
2004.
they
from-
built,
okay, it was in the 2006
It was in
study.
the 6th plan before Dover Cole did the Boundary Street Master Plan.
Okay, so when I saw this, to me, it looked like another feasible option for a road that would run parallel to Boundary Street and basically allow you to not have to get on Boundary Street and yet get from one side of town to downtown. So I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but when I looked at it in the plan, and that was in 2006, it was estimated to cost $9.5 million, probably 3 or 4 times that now. But this was just an example of one potential option that we could have that was previously identified and is transportation related, because congestion along that roadway has been, and that's without the new development coming online, a reoccurring conversation that we've had with people.
I just wanted to clarify, because I didn't talk into the microphone. The study done by CTC is available online too. It lists all the roads that were in that study and the conditions of them.
And it does include city state.
It
state
does,
streets.
okay. I couldn't remember. I thought it did. I know it did in Port Royal too, because they own a lot of their own roads. If you were part of that study. Also remember, the 10 million can be, it's pretty broad bucket, transportation, but there's also money, as we called it, buckets for pathways. And pathways can include things that Spanish Moss Trail, connections to sidewalks in the city. So that wouldn't have to be part of your 10 million bucket. It could be part of the pathways bucket.
Right.
Just wanted to clarify that.
And there is $80 million for transit, which I'd like to see a trolley system or
Yes.
something at least
Yes, that's,
initiated.
that was a big, consideration, of course, was mass transit and, trolley, we've talked about it for years, the trolley system, Ladies Island, that kind of thing. But that wouldn't have to be part of your 10 million.
Right.
Right.
And,
If y'all have any other questions of me, go ahead.
I'm-
If not, I'll go sit back
Well,
down.
Well, before you sit down, I have.
Councilman Mitchell?
I'll defer to you.
okay, no, well, when we do our work session, I hope you can have the people come explain to us exactly what is planned for Reebok, because there's a lot of mistrust.
Mhm.
There's rumors out there, they still want to narrow the 2 lanes, there's still traffic circles. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, nobody knows, and I'd like to get it clarified because there's a lot of mistrust there. Second of all, I keep harping on this. I wish this is a 15-year tax. I wish they would have put plans.
It's
not-
a 10-year now.
Or 10-year, okay. I wish instead of just having where we can do a study, I wish there would have been a little more taking it forward, for a 3rd crossing. I would like to really get that going. And we've been kicking that can for
We
decades.
can have staff at your workshops to answer questions.
Okay, it's been decades.
Yeah,
It's been
I'm
kicked
not
around.
I'm not necessarily, and I can't,
Yeah, I
at this
know.
point, since we voted on it,
I know.
I'm not part of the process, so, right, we can't, promote
No,
as council
It's just been
members.
kicked around for decades and decades, and we need to really get moving on it.
But there's a lot of flexibility that something like that,
Okay.
yes, did you have?
Yeah, just a comment, the geography of this area, it's kind of like saying one day downtown Beaufort is going to be bigger. No, it's not. Never going to be bigger, because we're surrounded by water. And the same thing coming in on Boundary Street. I always question the whole parallel road thing, but I do like Josh's idea. I never heard of this until he mentioned it to me today, of this connection of somewhere in Burton, around Robert Smalls Parkway, and where the trail intersects to.
And a lot of that has to do with safety too, and that's another bucket of money is
Yes.
safety.
And thirdly,
evacuations.
there are 2 ways to address traffic. You can either create more lanes, which most places do, is keep building more lanes. It's already too full before it's completed. Or you could try to create ways of public transportation of taking some folks off the road. And our city, I think, lends itself beautifully to that in terms of Ladies Island downtown, Port Royal and Walmart area. I mean, if you had a continuous loop, if folks get on and off real quickly, you could, I think, that's something that we really should pay attention to in terms of getting traffic off the road.
And I don't know how many of you know it, but Palmetto Breeze is doing a regular route now that includes Piggly Wiggly, Rose. There's a stop there.
Mhm.
It's being heavily used according to Palmetto Breeze.
That's awesome.
So that's, I don't know the whole route, but I know it stops there in the hospital and the YMCA, and it's getting a lot of use. One other thing about going back to Salem Road, they have started the survey work on that for the sidewalk. So,
Okay,
and
good.
it's already funded. So,
Well, I know some of the developments are required to put.
and some of them are going to have to fill in the gaps.
Mhm.
You're right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things that I had down here just locally, that we could probably consider too, is downtown bollards, for closure of the streets. I know there's some talk of maybe if the city could acquire Carteret to Charles Street, we could close it off when we would have these first Fridays and so forth. Having these pop-up bollards would save having police officers having to staff that. It's something we can explore. Also, we need crosswalk improvements. I think on Bay, Carteret, they're not the most visible out there, and I think they're kind of dangerous. We also could use one on Boundary Street, USCB, for those students that cross over from the Boys and Girls Club over to the dormitories. But those are some of the things that I think could be added.
You said a crosswalk on Bay or Carteret?
Well, the crosswalks, you can barely
Gonna
see them.
say-
They're not very visible.
Right.
People sometimes don't stop when they see people walking across.
Those would be covered under safety also, and there's also another pot of money for that.
Yeah,
Right.
there is.
And that can be done, that is also part of local area transportation and CTC. So we wouldn't have to use our 10 million to do that
I'm just
necessarily.
getting my name out there for the city.
No, and I think that's, I mean, all of that is exactly why it's beneficial for us to have this conversation, right? Because then we can determine what priorities make sense for us with this 10 million based on the other categories that exist that could be funded through other pots of money, so that we make sure that not only are we transparent in what our intentions are should this pass, but also prudent and get the most out of a small amount for what we have in regards to concerns in the city.
Yeah, Alice, just another question. Does the county already have some ideas of how they want to spend some of this?
Should have
money?
just stayed there, you know.
Yeah. If you can answer it, I'm not sure. Because there are all those other buckets of money that could be used. Do they already have some ideas of what they want?
I'll use Jared's quote. There's enough flexibility in there
Okay.
that these buckets, as to Mike McPhee's point about safety and crossings,
Gotcha.
it's, but I think the more y'all discuss it and pinpoint where you think those things need to happen
Okay.
would be better,
Get them included.
to get them included, but, not necessarily part of your 10 million.
Okay,
Right.
good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Everybody good with that? You want to bring this back up at another meeting or?
I think so, yeah, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when would be the most appropriate time. We don't have, because we're going on break, so I guess we probably wouldn't want to utilize any of the Tuesdays in between there. We want to have the break. So I don't know what.
Let's do it on our August meeting, which is I think the fourth Tuesday. Is that correct?
20th?
27th, but
27th.
27th
that
is
has
your
the,
next
that
regular.
has the quarterly capital.
The 20th
Yeah,
is your
that's the
quarterly
24th.
capital projects update.
Okay, so
Oh, that's
27th.
right. That's the third.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. Yeah. So let's do it on in our work session if we would add that. And I know we got a couple other items that need to be added
Do
as well.
you think it would be beneficial to go ahead and give staff the direction to maybe pull some priorities or identify some projects that they think this could
I'd
fund?
like to take a look at that CTC, the study that was done to see what roads we have, already been identified, and maybe, if staff could look into that for us. Let us know.
Councilman Scaletti, we can surely carve out some time during the August 20th workshop to talk about some of that. So we
Okay.
can devote some time to that.
All right.
And then, do you want a copy of this that I printed out? I only printed out 6, but just for the record, in case you want to put it in the minutes, and then if people want to look at it later and either it's something that the community likes or it's not, but could be another option for a parallel road to take some traffic off of Boundary Street. I can give you a copy before we leave. if you want.
Yes, sir, please do, and the clerk will put it in the minutes.
And please note that Bay Street should be North Street.
Yes,
On
I
this.
already marked it out on my.
Definitely.
Okay, well, with that, I think we'll adjourn this meeting and we will have our regular meeting beginning at 7 PM. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate all the comments.
Stay for 11, 7.
You can always stay.